Hello and welcome to this GIS report reporting for the Ministry of Health and Social Development. I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letsom Humphrey. Today we are reporting from the Botanic Gardens in the beautiful British Virgin Islands, and we're here with our Minister for Health and Social Development, Honorable Vincent Wheatley, here to talk about his recent trip to Dubai at the COP28 conference. Welcome to the program, Minister.
Thank you, Natasha. Always a pleasure to be here with you in the beautiful Botanic Gardens.
Wonderful. So, the first burning question we have for you, Minister, Minister for Health, attending a climate change conference. Talk a bit about that.
Well, Natasha, the link between climate change and health has been long established. But for the first time at a COP conference in 28 years, there was a health day this year. So I felt as Minister for Health, I needed to be there, present at the table, to lend my voice to discussions or whatever was happening around health. And what we did see happen at that conference was the UK pledging $20 million, £20 million towards health adaptations, health resilience, and health mitigation measures. So I think it was very important that I be there in person to say BVA was there at the very first health conference, health day at a COP conference. You know, COP is a conference of parties. It's where the world leaders and the world leading economies come together to assess the our global climate and to make decisions about mitigation measures and various things they're going to do to help us, survive climate change. As small territories, we are on the front line of the effects of climate change, the floods of 2017, the hurricanes of 2017, and so forth. These things are projected to be more frequent and more intense. And the damage caused by these things are significant for small economies, such as ours. So it's very important that the BVI show up at these conferences and let their voices be known. Now let me give you a bit of background of OTs attending COP. As overseas territories, we don't really have a place at the table. We are represented by the UK, but the UK don't always, have the sensitivities that we would have towards our territories. The UK in the past only used to allow one overseas leader at this conference, and that leader had to take the concerns of all overseas territories to the conference, to the UK. Now, in 2021, when the UK hosted the conference, for the first time they allowed more than one overseas territory to attend. I think that year they allowed like five. I was part of that delegation as a Minister for Environment then. And OTs, we banded together and we decided we need to have a single voice to talk to the UK. In COP in 2020, COP 27, that was COP 26 in 2021. In 2022, COP 27, I think about three OTs showed up at that conference, and again they realized we have to come out in more numbers. We weren't sure we'd be allowed more than one or five like we did in 2026. This year set a whole new record. We had like 28 delegates from all the overseas territories present there. Now, one of the salient reasons why the overseas territories sought to be there is since the UK left the EU with Brexit, we lost a lot of funding for our resilience and adaptation that we used to get from the EU. Now, with all the resilience funds and the global loss and damage fund and all these other funds over there for mitigation, the OTs don't have a place at the table with these funds. We actually get zero. So we decided fit to come together and lobby the UK to say, listen to us. We are on the front line of climate change. You have to do better by us in terms of providing a voice for us among the leading countries in terms of what are we going to do. So we held various meetings with various leaders. The main one was Minister Stewart. He's a net zero minister from the UK. We actually had a meeting with him, and we put our position forward. The UK has a negotiating team and a negotiating period. They have been negotiating since last year, since earlier this year, sorry. But we weren't allowed in those negotiations. And that was one of the things that we lobbied very, very hard for. The OTs must be part of your planning. We don't want to hear what you decided for us after the fact. So, and they pretty much agreed, yes, you will be involved in the planning. Each country must give their position going into COP, what they're going to do. Now, you'd have seen the UK pledge $140 million to the world towards mitigation and adaptation measures. The question was, where does the OTs fit into that 140? Actually, we don't fit in. we do not fit in. So we have to find ways of accessing various funds. Because if you're going to, like after Hurricane Irma, if you're going to rebuild your country after every calamity from your funds, the country can't go anywhere. These things cost millions, sometimes billions of dollars to rebuild. You must have access to global funds to be able to deal with climate change. So the BVI's presence at this conference, like all the other overseas, was so significant because if you get left out, is your very existence you're really playing with. Sea level rise, strong hurricanes, all kind of climatic events can happen that can really set you back financially. Your voice have to be heard that this is unacceptable. And we appeal to the UK and what we could appeal to help us look at how do we access funds for our adaptation or mitigation to strengthen our resilience. So ask your other question.
Definitely. And that's good to know, Minister, that you're able to go over there and stand up for us here in the
Yes.
territory and to be a part of that conversation and to be a part of some of that much needed funding. Before we go a bit later in the questioning to the outcomes of those conversations and where we're going to move from here, I want a little bit more context about the conference itself and, how is climate change correlated to health? What is that linkage there?
Well, climate change changes up the normal pattern of the way things happen. Let's go to the BVI context. Persons who lost their homes during the hurricanes, persons who lost their jobs, persons who lost their businesses, think on how that affects them. When persons lose hope and can't see how they can bounce back, it affects you mentally. There are many persons right now, the minute the wind blows too heavy, they get anxious. Anxiety leads to depression, leads to all kind of other mental, other health issues in your body. So they realize that as things change more and more drastically because of climate change, persons are going to be affected mainly with mental health more than anything else. And that mental health issue is going to lead to physical problems also. So this has been recognized for a very long time by many, many countries. But for the first time, there's a day dedicated just to this. I attended some of the main lectures on this and some side lectures where persons were having group discussions on things like mental health, how to tackle it, how to recognize it, how to deal with it, and so forth. We're going to need these resources. There are resources available to us through the UK that we can tap into that I wasn't aware of before I went to this conference. One of the key things with a conference like this is you see persons, there are all kind of persons. There are persons who are selling products, persons who are presenting research, they're presenting new technologies, they're presenting new paradigms, they're presenting new information, they're presenting all sorts of new stuff there. You're able to sit down and listen to experts, sell their products. There are persons that are trying to seek investment opportunities also. You meet these persons. They were expecting 80,000 persons at this COP. It went over 100,000 from all around the world. I think 140 countries were present. It is so important that the BVI not be left out of these kinds of conversations. And on top of that, I must commend the Premier for his great leadership in pulling together an OT's conference at that meeting, where all OT's leaders were there to present their perspective on how they're affected individually by climate change. Because though we're all on the front line, we still are affected slightly differently. So we were there to tell our stories in person. I thought it was very, very important that we did that.
And that the mental health issues, especially associated with disaster impact and so on, is very, very, very important. So, what are some of the takeaways that you got from there that you would like to see implemented here? And what do you see some of our challenges being when it comes to mental health?
But right now, our biggest challenge, and we already started that campaign, what's it called now? Supplement the stigma of mental health is a campaign currently being run to reduce the stigma of mental health. For many years, it's gotten a very bad stigma, particularly among our people here, that people don't think it's important to go and check your mental health like you would your physical health. So that campaign is currently running. And so once we get persons comfortable in safe spaces discussing mental health issues, we've passed a major, major barrier. We have to create more safe spaces where persons can talk about it and how to address it, how to remove the anxiety, how to prepare for calamities in your life, how to better prepare for it, how to check yourself, regularly, how to check your mental state regularly. And you get to sit and listen to young persons, you get to listen to old person, business person, talk about things that they are doing. And one of the major things that they all mention is removing the stigma of mental health. And I said we are ahead of a lot of countries with that. In that we already started those through our partners who've given us some funding to run this campaign through Dr. Rubain. So we are already on the way to addressing that already. The final stage will be creating like an institution where persons may go who are out of control, so to speak, where they can have a safe space. Because this person is how the way they express themselves. In a safe space, the way they express themselves might be harmful to you and I, because they don't have certain controls based on their mental state to how to behave. But they're not bad people, and if we create a nice institution where they can go and be taken care of, is important. That's the last stage. But we're not talking about that stage. We're talking about the regular check to avoid you or prevent you from being there. We see this here in the capital, with the couple of persons who walk around. That number is projected to grow. We don't want the persons to get to the stage where they're on the street talking to themselves or offending tourists or anybody. We want to make sure you are checking regularly to keep you from that stage.
Well, we definitely look forward to any interventions that could enhance that program, because a lot of people silently suffer from mental health challenges on the spectrum, not necessarily the adverse end of it, but
Right.
to keep that mental health in check, like you said, like as a part of your physical health.
Exactly.
That is something that a message that we definitely can push. Now, earlier in the conversation, you spoke about BVI's position after our planning our position to present at the table. What position are we putting forward?
The key issue we have in the BVI and the other overseas territories is access to funds. The BVI cannot take 2 or 3 Category 5 hurricanes. It cannot happen. If we have to depend on our own funding to recover from a hurricane or even to do mitigation measure, adaptation measures, we don't have that kind of money. We must have access to, like the other independent countries. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars are out there that we have no access to. We're asking the UK to create a dedicated fund for your overseas territories. You must do this for us. You must include us in your negotiations. You must also commit yourself to creating a fund for overseas territories who don't have access to any other kind of funding besides loan funding. If you're going to take a loan to rebuild after every single hurricane that are predicted to be very frequent, clearly it's not sustainable. If you're going to put solar panels on every roof in the BVI, if you're going to build seawalls for as adaptation and mitigation measures, where's all this funding coming from? It is not cheap to do. One of the lectures I was able to sit in on was a solid waste lecture, and where I was able to talk with a manufacturer of incinerators. And I thought it was a very, I didn't know what I was going to expect. I know it's solid waste, so I'm going to this lecture, this event happening there. And there were 4 or 5 guys talking about the way they handle waste. Again, we have our waste strategy, just waiting to come forward. We're on the right track with that there. If you're going to buy a new incinerator, here's a potential manufacturer right here. I can talk to him. Furthermore, they already exist in Dubai. I can go and look and see the functioning, ask any questions. Dubai invited me to come and do that. You want to see the actual machine that this guy makes? We have 4. Anytime you want to come, we'll take you into the incinerator. You can see it, you can touch it, ask all the prices, ask all the stats, ask all the efficiency. Anything you want to know, we can tell you. These are important things to one-on-one with this person. I spoke to the manufacturer himself. I have his card. When we're going to do an RFP, which hopefully come out in the next couple of weeks, I'll make sure that he gets one of those cars, as well as anybody else in the market who may be interested in coming to us. Our incinerator is currently down. There was a fire there yesterday. I was there. We can't continue this way. The capacity of the current incinerator here is 100 tons. It's about, I think, a little over 10 years old. Right now, our dump is about 160,000 tons a day. So clearly, we have to move on from the current incinerator. Fix this is one thing, but we must move on. If you're going to keep up, we must reduce the amount of waste going into the incinerator. So our recycling is so important. And our strategy, I want to get it out by first quarter next year. We cannot continue the way we are going. I had a call yesterday also with WSTX out of the U.S. Virgin Islands, because they too are affected by our incineration here. And they want to know, what are your plans? We've heard certain things before. What are your plans now, Minister, to solve this problem? You have to be back here every year. BVI, people in St. John are complaining about the smoke, the scent, whatever it is happening over there. So when they go to this conference, you see modern technology and you can interact with a person doing this thing. You can bring these things back and then you follow up. But you have to, if you're not at the table these days, you're going to get left out. You're going to get left out of the mix. There was one OT who didn't come for some particular reasons, and I feel sorry for them because they had no voice to express, this is my concern. This is the way I am particularly affected by climate change. Because we're all going through it. Acidification of our oceans. And another thing that came out at the conference, which I was not that aware of before, as the planet heats up, take for example, we are afraid of viruses, we are afraid of bacteria. We're not afraid of fungus, but fungus is more dangerous than bacteria or viruses, except they can't live in cool temperatures. The hotter it gets, the more threatening they become. So as the world heats up, you're going to get some strange diseases and strange things happening. This climate change is going to affect us, which is why the health aspect again becomes so important. You're going to see new diseases. As the temperature rises, I think about 94 degrees, is where the fungus, the fungi, that's when they come into play. Say they don't bother us right now in any major way because they can't survive in cool climates. It starts to get warm, strange things begin to happen. Outbreaks of dengue and these things happen in warmer climates. So, so climate change does affect us health-wise also, because the patterns of rainfall and drought and so forth, things that haven't been around for a long time, all of a sudden now, the conditions, the environment is perfect for these new things that we haven't known about for a long time to suddenly spring up, and we don't know how to combat them at this point in time. So we have to be very vigilant that we are preparing ourselves and our people to deal with this real case of climate change. And I must commend the Premier too again, like I said, for his leadership in championing the cause for only the BVI, but for the OTs being at the table and being heard. And the minister did, out of the three things we were asking, to be part of the negotiations, to have a dedicated health and climate fund for the OTs to be there. And that we hope to see happen.
Well, we hope to see that happen too. And it was so beautiful talking to you today, Minister, to give us some perspective on the health aspect of the COP conference and just basically how BVI stands to benefit and her people stands to benefit from, having a seat at that global table. Before I let you go, you could leave us with any.
I want to say one more thing. Sorry to cut you off. But one of the last meetings I had was a company called a French company. And he said, I want to meet with you all because I've heard of your problem where you don't have access to funding. He said to us, I have some funding I think you can use. But you have to apply for this funding and you have until the end of the year to apply for this funding. Right away I got on the phone, I called back here. Guys, we have two opportunities here to land two projects. One of the projects that I'm working on is actually a health project because health also contributes to climate change. All light bill at HSA is around 150 to 190,000 dollars a month. That means we are burning an exorbitant amount of fossil fuels. So I asked him, can we write to your company to get funding to do an energy audit of the HSA here in the BVI with a view towards reducing our consumption? He said, get me the paperwork, we'll review it, and if it's approved, get your funding in the new year. We will pay for that. So again, if I hadn't been there in place to say that, then we would have lost out. So I look forward to getting two projects back to him before end of the month. One was with waste management and one was with energy and energy audit for the BVI. There's two tangible things we could say almost in the bag. Almost in the bag.
Final
But
thoughts, Minister.
no, these COP climates are very, very important. They're necessarily cheap to attend. It happens once a year. And achievements at COPs are not overnight. Where we are today started at COP 26. We made a plea that we should be more involved with COP. Now we are more involved at COP, we want to be more involved at a decision-making level. I mean, our contingent from the BVI was 4 persons as compared to Bermuda, who had 60 persons. Because these people, they mean business. They're very involved. They understand where they are and they try to capitalize in every opportunity to really bring resilience, adaptation, and mitigation measures to our OT's country. Once we band together, we can get there. All monies alone cannot do it. We must have access to these global funds that are out there in the hundreds of millions to help us. Our very existence depends on what we do at these COP meetings.
Love it, love it, love it. Once again, we were here with our Minister for Health and Social Development, Honorable Vincent Wheatley, here talking about, some revelations that occur at the COP28 conference. Once again, Honorable Wheatley, thank you for sharing that information with us, and we look forward to the continued benefits that will come along with that.
Absolutely. I look forward to going back to COP29. We're not sure it's going to be yet, but hopefully I'll get to go again to build on the work that we have started now. But I do believe it will continue because we already started the ball rolling in that direction. So I do believe the other OTs, and luckily some of the folks I met at COP26, they are still at COP28. So we know each other. We have a quick bond. We have a group chat among all the OTs. At this COP conference, every morning we all met via link at 8 o'clock every morning to plan our strategy for that day. All OTs working together for a common goal, access to global funds.
Wonderful. Reporting for the Ministry of Health and Social Development, I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letsom Humphrey. Thank you for tuning in.